Hi, my name is Trent Bearable. I am an SOE major at WSU, and the reason I picked wildfire severity as my topic is because I'm a wildland firefighter during the summer, and I have noticed that over my career there has been more and more wildfires each year. To start, my introduction, and that is that there has been a rising increase in the amount of wildfire activity. Areas that have the most wildfire tend to be the ones that have dense forests cover or burnable fields. This can be as simple as a clear cut operation versus a forested area. A clear cut operation would not have as dense forest density. The cause of these wildfires is what I'll be trying to find out through my research. Starting with my background in research, I found out a lot of good information on wildfire severity. The first one being that I found was that wildfires will burn with more severity when there are dense fuels present. They can be found out this way by testing an area that had dense fuels versus those that didn't. The second article I found has to do with wildfires burning so hot that it burns the oxygen out of the soil. They found that the more severe a wildfire was, the more it damaged the soil. They said that the cause of this was from forest fuel loading, which means that they are piling up. The third article I found that I did research on was fire suppression. They concluded that with increasing fire suppression, it allowed the fuels to build up and then burning with more severity. After looking at these articles, they all tie in with each other, even though they were all testing different aspects. The overall result was clear, and that is that areas that have more fuels will burn with higher severity. For my inductive reasoning, from the observations I have made, they lead me to think that there is more burnable fuels in forested areas that can cause wildfire severity to rise. With there being more burnable fuels in forested areas, it causes the wildfires to burn with a higher severity. From my initial point of view, removing the number of fuels in that forested area could help reduce the wildfire severity. There could also be many ways of doing this, such as logging or using fire as controlled burning. From there, this is my research hypothesis. The rise in wildfire severity in forested areas is directly related to the amount of vegetation within the forested area. From this hypothesis, we will be able to test to see whether or not wildfire severity is related to the amount of fuel present when the wildfire burns. To test this hypothesis, I will perform direct studies on wildfire sites that have already been burned. I will collect data and see if there is compelling evidence that dense vegetation makes an impact on wildfire severity. For my study site, I will find a post-burn wildfire site in a forested area and conduct forest plots of the burned vegetation. I will do multiple tests in different post-burn wildfire sites to make sure there is actually compelling evidence that show that dense vegetation can cause an increase in wildfire activity. Some assumptions that I'll have to make are: 1, that climate is the same between both the sites. This is important to make sure that the sites will have the same amount of sunlight to dry out the vegetation the same, and other reasons too. The second one being is the sites were burnt around the same time of year. This is to ensure that both sites had enough time in the spring and summer to properly grow new vegetation and for it to dry out during the summer. The third assumption is the sites will have the same tree species. This is because some trees are more fire tolerant than others. This would be to ensure that the wildfire sites have the same fairness when testing. Some trees don't burn as good as other trees do. The last assumption that I'm going to make is that the sites will have the same topography. This is because wildfires behave differently at lower elevations than it does at high elevations. It also behaves differently whether you're on a mountain or a flat field. All these assumptions are to be made sure that each wildfire site tested will be fair and have results that are able to be comparable with each other. Concluding that with my hypothesis is correct, we will proceed with the critical test. We should predict that there is enough evidence of more dense vegetation in post-burn forested sites. While thinking of my research hypothesis and doing research on the topic, I found other hypotheses that could be tested the same way and have results that interfere with the way I achieved mine. They are: 1. The rising increase in fire suppression over the years has caused the forests to overgrow, which increases the severity that wildfire burns at. The second being, the rising in global temperature creating warmer summers causes the drier weather to dry out fuels, causing fires to burn with more severity. The last one being, clear-cut logging sites burn with the same wildfire severity due to drier field beds and more slash than the forested areas. After looking at the critical test and alternative hypothesis, I can conclude that the denser the forest vegetation, the higher wildfire severity will be when the site burns. To stop this, we could implement plans such as logging or prescribed burning to help stop the amount of high severity wildfires. Overgrown forests that have a lot of vegetation will eventually burn and be catastrophic. Thinning the forest will help lower the severity of the fires when the sites burn. This is my works cited page. Thank you for watching my presentation video. Please post in the discussion board if you have any questions, and I'll try my best to answer them. Once again, thank you and have a good day.